Bright Tuty. Every student matters.
The assignment questions. So you have the assignment questions which are there, which are in basically broadly four major categories. The first being being very small answers. The first question says define culture. If you talk about the first two slides that were defining culture, which was talking about culture being the life, the way of life found in the society, that is how you define culture, because it is a very short answer question. Majorly are 1 markers or MCQs at times. So 1 markers are not to be answered in more than 20 words, because you are supposed to keep the time limit or the time check for completing your exam as well. So 20 words would be a good number to answer a 1 word question. I am talking about in max 20 words, at max 20 words, because you can answer it in one word as well if the question, the answer gets satisfied if the question gets satisfied. But if the question needs explanation, and because it says define here, then at least 20 words is what they would be looking at. So yes, the first question being define culture, it means the way of life found in the society in the sociological aspect. Second thing, talking about the cultural traits. We again talked about cultural traits being the simplest identifiable unit of the culture. Third, what is meant by material culture? We have given you a lot of understanding of the material culture, something which is present in form of physical objects, something which is man-made, you can touch, you can feel, you have some kind of efficiency that can always be worked upon, you can measure the quality of it. Any of these two aspects or any of the two characteristics, it would be good enough to justify this answer. You have to give one example of the material culture. You can give it. You can have radio, clothing, schools, buildings, laptops, pens, all of these, any of these man-made aspects. Then what is non-material culture? Again, you know, all of these cultural aspects which consists of non-physical or the abstract ideas, values, knowledge. Then these are not really easily transferable and are inexhaustible. All of these will come under the non-material culture. The second aspect is short answer questions, wherein again they want you to define culture. We have already discussed it. And what are the two types of culture? So they want you to discuss in detail about the material and the non-material culture. Discuss any 4 features of the culture. We have talked about a lot of features, or the features here means characteristics. Features here means how do you define. So features of culture, as in culture is acquired, it is not innate. Then you have culture is social, culture is transmissive, it consists of ideas, it fulfills the needs, it is an integrated whole and is dynamic. All of these aspects are the features. You can define any 4 of them. What are the culture traits? We have already discussed it. And what are the culture, and what is the culture complex? We have discussed before what is the culture complex. Culture complex is because it is a combination of all the cultural traits and functions as one unit in the society. That is what is known as the culture complex. Now again, okay, all of these questions will be generally 2 markers or at max 3 markers, 2 or 3 markers. So you can answer it accordingly. Herein, the last question says, explain cultural diversity in context of India. Very easy for all of you to explain. You will talk about how we have varied, castes, subcastes. You have multicultural society, you have varied religious communities. Because of that, it makes India a glorious multicultural character. So that is what is there in the short answer type questions. Moving ahead, again short answer type, 2 to 3 markers. Give the meaning of material and non-material culture with 1 example each. We have it in the slide behind, and we have discussed it in the previous slide as well, what are material, non-material culture, because this would be a 2 to 3 marker that requires a little more understanding and explanation. Plus, they have very clearly written with one example each. Please, while you are attempting the questions, keep a check on what all has the question asked for. Do not forget, because we as educators are very, very sure of what we have asked, and we want the answers in that way. Then they have asked you to differentiate between material and non-material culture with one example each. Again, that is also very easy to be done. What is meant by cultural lag? We just discussed. The pace at which the material culture is moving is very high, is very fast. However, the pace at which the non-material culture is moves is not that high. The imbalance, because of the speed or the rate of the speed of these two, causes the cultural lag. You may take the example that I have given you. If you have your own example, you may take those examples as well. One of the examples of the statue and the thinking is being present, or the imagination of the artist is given out there. Then they talk about what define culture and explained Ogburn theory of the cultural lag. We have just discussed about his theory of cultural lag. He talks about that the change in the material culture is quick, but the non-material culture changes are very slow, and that's what the lag is about. So you may explain it here as well. Explain the concept of cultural lag using suitable examples. I've given you examples. Again, if you want to use those examples, you may use that. If you want to have some of your examples, that's great, and you may use those examples. Essay type questions generally are 6 markers, and they say what is culture, explain the characteristics of culture. We have discussed about the characteristics of culture there. They were asking about the 4 characteristics. Here they are asking about the all the characteristics of the culture, and those are there. You may write those. Again, define culture. How are cultural traits different from cultural complex? You may explain culture first, explain cultural traits, explain cultural complex, and then explain the difference between the difference between cultural traits and cultural complex. Just a minor thing here, these can also be 2 to 4 markers, not just 3, it can be 2 to 4, any of these markers.